God the Father gathered all the waters together and called them the seas. He gathered all his graces together and called them Mary, says Saint Montfort. My dear brethren in Christ, in the midst of ardent preparations for Christmas, today the Holy Church invites us to look unto the event of the incarnation of His beloved Son through our Mother Mary, as we celebrate the Feast of Immaculate Conception, proclaiming that she is the epitome of holiness, the holy vessel that God chose to give birth to His only Son into this world. The Feast of Immaculate Conception, amidst Advent, reminds us that all the cleaning, baking and buying in relation to Christmas should reflect something even bigger going on inside me, that is, preparation for Christ coming to my heart. The Feast of Immaculate Conception points out to the crown of glory invested upon Mary by God the Father, by her stainless birth, an honor only given to her, as we all are marked with the sin of our first parents. Our first parents, Adam and Eve, before their fall, were the only ones who could bear the unfathomable holiness and sanctity of God the Father. But once sin crept into their beings, they were exposed to the scorching and unbearable burns away in the presence of the all-holy God. This indeclinably points out to the fact that one requires utmost holiness to form the Son of God within each and every one of us. Not surprisingly, when it came time for God to take on flesh, He prepared a holy vessel. Like the burning bush from which God spoke to Moses, Mary held God within her and was not consumed. Through the prevenient grace of God, Mary was born sinless in anticipation of Christ's death on the cross. This may raise to our mind the question, in this act of conceiving the Son of God, what role did Mary play, since God saw to it that Mary was conceived without the stain of original sin? My dear brethren in Jesus Christ, she was not the only one who was freed from the clutches of sin. Weren't our first parents born without sin? But they chose evil above God's ineffable love. Weren't the Israelites raised through the grace of God to the title of God's own people? But they decided to forsake their God in times of difficulties. And aren't we freed from the bruised mark of the original sin committed by our first parents? But through the blessed sacrament of baptism, we too are freed from the clenched fist of the evil. Even though Mary was blessed with an immaculate conception, it was she who maintained that initial grace received from God, not only till the birth of Christ, but until her last breath, and also thereafter in heaven, which happens to be the most difficult task in which we all tend to fail. She was indeed full of grace. From the start, she had what it took to stand in God's presence. Mary had to be prepared to receive the Christ child in her womb. How much more should we prepare to receive Him in our hearts? Mary shows us that, in spite of our frailty, we too can receive God. Let us make fitting preparations for the coming of child Jesus into our lives, not only in a peripheral manner, but also in our inner disposition, and thus be called by God as the one where all the graces are gathered together, as Saint Montfort finds in Mary. Thank you.